Good day, everyone. We meet again. It's nice to be here. I hope everyone is having a good time. I am as well. Thank you for the support that you guys have been giving me, and I really appreciate it. Uh, Please subscribe, like, and share if you're new. And let's get straight away. So today, because still continuing on as I had talked on the last video about, there's this division of people feeling that probably some people are not honoring the queen. It's because she has passed. Some are feeling that she was dear to them. Others are not honoring, and we need to see both perspective of these both parties. The ones that are honoring the queen, they're honoring her because she embodies, her country, her countrymen, and it makes sense when it's your country person. But for people who, the queen remains them of the British Empire, the colonial system. Uh, it's good to to look at both sides and understand where I see it is more of I'm trying to understand both sides, and I'll give my perception on the sides of the people who don't feel that they can honor or uh, honor the queen. Death is not something that's good, but to it's not something that is everyone is happy. No, but at the end of the day, it's very sorry that she has passed, and I will never want anyone even close to me to go through that. But when you look on the other side, it's not her fault that the British Empire was like that, because she was just born into a monarch and she found that's how things work. So I'll try and look at what was, where was the queen when Queen Elizabeth, let's call her Elizabeth, when she was being, when she knew she has become queen. Queen Elizabeth, she was born during the era of the colonial British Empire period. And she became queen in 1952. And for those who don't know, she was in Kenya. She was here in Kenya. And 1952, Kenya was a British protectorate under Sir Evelyn Berlin. He was the governor of this protectorate. And during this period, this is one of the worst periods ever in the history of Kenya, because, they called the Mau Mau fighters, they call them insurgents, but when here in Kenya, they are regarded as freedom fighters because they are the ones who fought for freedom, But the British government had called them militias, militants, and they used every force to try and, break the Mau Mau. The Mau Mau, mainly existed in central Kenya, especially in Nyeri. No, they participated in guerrilla urban warfare. They regarded the white settler. You had 30,000 settlers in Kenya, British settlers, and they fought against this kind of oppression and occupation. Against the security systems, the collaborators, and when she was coming to Kenya during that time, there were so many talks about her safety, and but at that time the dad had lung cancer. King George had lung cancer, so she couldn't travel with them. The queen was traveling with Philip, Prince Philip, and Australia and New Zealand had said that they were too far away to guarantee safety of the queen. But either way she came, she went to Nyeri, she went to Sagana for fishing, and that's where she was told that the dad had passed away, and she was the queen. And it's very interesting that the year she was in Kenya named the queen is the same year that Kenya entered its longest state of emergency since 1952 to 1960, a state of emergency for 8 years. It was one of the most brutal times. The whole colonial years since 1900 were brutal, but these 8 years were very brutal because now the government, the British occupation government, had declared war against against the Mau Mau militants or anyone who was thought to have collaborated with him. So it's that's why you find people are asking the question if she, she was all good and fighting for humanity and loved everyone. She was when she was in Kenya when she left the same year. Kenya fell under state of emergency for 8 years, and I'm sure she knew about it. But we can argue probably they were hardliners. Even though she's the queen, the government has so many forces, but we'll never know the truth. But I'm just giving an account of what was going through. So in 1952, Kenya entered into its longest state of emergency. During this 8-year period, they implemented heavy system of suppression. Concentration camps, torture. People could be rounded up any minute, and taxes were increased upon the natives, upon the Africans. So because it was considered, the state of emergency slowed down businesses because businesses had to be closed early and opened late because of security issue. So to recover, to keep the Kenyan economy afloat, taxes were heavily, forced up out of the Kenyan people. As I said, concentration camps. Almost 78,000 people were taken through concentration camps. Tortured. You know, uh, in the 8 years, there were 20,000 Africans who had died. And it might seem not a big number, small, but when you see the area that the operation was done, there is very small for a number of 20,000 because it's just in the central area or central of Kenya. And vis-a-vis the numbers of British settlers who died were 200. So a state of emergency for 8 years because of 200 people, you see. And all this time, Queen Elizabeth was queen. All this time was going. And that, that's why it's very hard to separate, her figure from the monarch, even though people are saying. So I'm giving an account of, a different point of view because I've never experienced being a British. I've only experienced being a Kenyan. So I'm giving an account of a Kenyan. It's how like we see Obama or Donald Trump. When you see Obama or Trump, you see America. So that's what people are seeing. During all this time, she was the queen. The leader of the Momo was caught and killed in 1956. The current president, the first president, Jomo Kenyatta, was arrested there were six of their friends. There were six of them. They were called the Kapenguria Six. They were punished to hard labor, and during these 8 years, it was one of the most brutal times to be Kenyan. There were extrajudicial killings, assassinations, and even the colonial government used collaborators. Local African people who had collaborated with them to try and hunt them all down, to try and stop these insurgents. And I feel this wasn't only happening in Africa, in Kenya. It was happening all over the colonial states where these kind of issues were happening. And that's why I'm saying this is something that we'll never know. What was her thought on colonization? Why didn't she act bold enough to stop it? If she was good as people say. Sometimes probably there were hardliners. People might argue she was young. She was, I think, 25 when she took over. So there were hardliners, old people who pushed for the colonial empire. Let's not forget these colonies were making a lot of money for the British Empire. A lot of money. And even her visiting Kenya was considered at the time to be like an Australia, like a New Zealand, like a Canada. It was even considered, even when Kenya gains independence, it's going to get that stature because all these British aristocrats and royalties used to visit Kenya because Kenya had a very significant, was very significant and close to them. Because even if you look, the relationship between Kenya today and Britain is still good. Kenya is always considered a partner. You remember that in East Africa, Kenya is not landlocked. It has a shore, so it was easy for Britain to push through the equipment, manpower. Kenya is neighboring in Uganda. Uganda is also a former British colony. Uganda is landlocked. So Kenya was very vital to the British. That's why probably to them it was so dear to heart. They came, they fell in love with the place. They settled near Mount Kenya, near the hills. And even if you look at the relationship till today, it's the Kenya and Britain have always had relationship. You know, Kenya houses uh, British military. We have a British military base in Nanyuki. It houses British troops where they train. They train and interact with also Kenyan troops. They train together. So you can see that Kenya and Britain have been having long-standing relationship even after the colonial period. Most of the people who were wealthy during that time were British people like the Delameyers and all these aristocrats. Um, but my point was just to focus on, what was the Queen doing, you know, when she, so that we don't get this narrative that, you know, that we can separate the two from the system. The system is one, and I feel like it's very hard if you're brought up in a colonial, background, and especially grew up when seeing colonization happening. It's not easy to switch off, especially like that. Your mindset cannot just change like that because you've experienced it, you've seen it. Even when she came here with Prince Philip, they could see that some people were being oppressed because they used the road. You can see that. Because that time we had a Kipande system, all Africans had to have needed to have a tag with their name, where they live, where they go. You can see literally there's some system of, it's like some North Korea. You can see like people are operating like how people say North Korea. So it's very interesting, but this is just to keep up the debate, not to make anyone mad. That's why I was saying that when you hear about see this video, don't think emotionally. Don't be very emotional. Just look at a logical point. Yeah, look at it at a very logical point, and you'll understand why some people feel this way and some people feel this way. I have nothing against those who are celebrating the Queen, especially her countrymen, her countrywomen. They deserve to support, because at the end of the day, even though the British Empire was built on, on slavery and colonization, you know, it was one of theirs who brought that wealth there. So I can understand the attachment, but also let's also look at this other side of the people who probably feel that that death is not as important, or or it reminds them of their losses, their our grandfathers, our grandmothers. Some of us are, the stories we are told every day. So it's just a two point of view. Anyway, guys, thank you. Uh, thank you for the support. I really, I'm enjoying the support. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll continue doing my best and ensure that I keep looking at these topics. Uh, till next time, thanks, guys. Cheers.